All right, Arizona Cardinal fans, it's time for the Red Rain podcast. This is our 207th episode of the Red Rain podcast, and I'm excited, as always, to welcome in your host, the one, the only, Walter Mitchell.
Oh, thank you to the one and only Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter, sporting his powder blue San Diego uh, Padres
Yep.
hat. Yeah,
San Diego Padres with the old school San Diego Chargers powder blue color.
right, and a tie dye top. Trying to brave this heat wave up in Sacktown, down in scorching Arizona with our resident expert Sam the Man. Welcoming him back to the fray here, and yeah, it's been an eventful week for the Cardinals, an eventful week for Kyler Murray. Wanted to start off sharing our thoughts about Kyler Murray to the Vikings on a NFL minimum contract, 1 year deal. Let me start off with Sam. What are your reactions to Murray as a Viking?
Well, I think the Vikings got a no risk, low paid option to compete with JJ McCarthy. And based on the pundits, they think Murray's going to be a starter. And it's going to be interesting to watch because he's been paired with a solid squad and the best organization he's ever played for, and a really, really good quarterback coach.
Right.
So it really comes down to, and I don't know how Kyler's going to do because I've never been able to figure out Kyler Murray. When you come back strong from an injury and you play so poorly and you haven't developed over so many years, despite the first 2 years of having so much promise with the coach that you didn't respect or couldn't get along with, and then you, in an entitled way, worked yourself into a situation where you frankly didn't have a quarterback coach. So O'Connell's scheme certainly doesn't fit Kyler, but because Kyler doesn't play under center, and that's O'Connell's scheme. But he's got some serious talent to play with, and we'll see if Kyler can learn how to hang out in the pocket, make the reads down the middle, and earn himself a starting role and keep a starting role. But as far as the Vikings are concerned, I mean, they're not paying him. They're paying him pennies, and if he works out, it's a hell of a heist.
Yes, sir. It's an interesting scenario all the way around. Let's get the Little Rock view on this development. Little Rock, what do you got?
So when it kind of became clear Kyler wasn't going to be back in Arizona, I kind of felt like he had the resume to where somebody else would give him a shot as their starting quarterback, just based on the fact that there's only 20-something franchise quarterbacks in the NFL, and some team in the in-between phase of trying to find a franchise quarterback or moving on would probably pick him up. And then when you factor in, you only got to pay him $1.3 million, makes it all the more desirable. It's the same reason why Tua has a starting job potentially in Atlanta next year. So it's a financially viable option for these franchises that took swings on rookie quarterbacks or young quarterbacks in the draft. And it appears that JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix maybe aren't the long-term solutions in the places that they were at, based on their general managers getting fired and a new general manager probably wanting to come in and draft their own quarterback in a year or two, but they don't have the picks this year to draft a quarterback. So they'll maybe wait a year or two, or maybe the Kyler Murray thing works out and they give him a long-term contract extension, and this new general manager in Minnesota, who I don't think they've even hired a general manager yet. I think it's still just an interim in Minnesota right now. Maybe that new general manager will hitch their wagon to Kyler Murray if everything works out. But it's a low risk, potentially high upside return for Minnesota. As much as the Sam Darnold stories are impressive and everything, I would guess Kyler doesn't spend more than 2 or 3 years probably with the Vikings, if not just one season. And if everything works out, maybe another team gives him a shot as their starting quarterback by the time he's 30 years old. But it would be cool to see him have that success and find himself a second career in the NFL as a franchise quarterback. I'm certainly rooting for his success, even if it's with Minnesota or somewhere else. It would be really cool to see him have that second career essentially as a franchise quarterback somewhere. But to Sam's point, not exactly a scheme fit, different stylistically than what Stefanski has done, or I'm sorry, not Stefanski, O'Connell has done in the past. Although I will say, him and Justin, I think it's probably the best quarterback Justin Jefferson's ever had up to this point in his career. You could argue a couple of those Kirk Cousins seasons, which, up and down, but again, or maybe even that one Sam Darnold season, you could argue that was maybe the best quarterback Justin Jefferson's ever had. Although one of those years he was hurt. I can't remember whether it was the Darnold year or the year before that, but either way, it'll be fun to see. And if it works out, it works out. And if it doesn't, Minnesota will be back to drafting at the top of the draft or trading up to pick a quarterback next year or whatever they're going to end up doing. So good luck to Kyler. It's a low risk scenario for the Vikings. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah. Well, your take is a lot different than mine because I wrote this week about, the buzz going around that the Cardinals did Kyler Murray wrong. And I see it as the opposite. I think he started the whole mess and took down a playoff caliber team, took down 2 coaching staffs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but this kid is not a team player. He's not a leader. And he's really shaky as a pocket quarterback. So, I think odds are the Vikings are going to still rue the day they let Sam Darnold leave the building. Because I think he fits the McConnell scheme far better. I'm not rooting against Kyler. I'm just not rooting for him. Because, you reap what you sow. And, I think that the way he handled his situation in Arizona, he clearly wanted out after 3 years. You don't scrub your socials and make it all about you on Super Bowl weeks. It's like, come and get me. And I'd heard things from reliable sources too, what Kyler was looking for. And it wasn't to stay with the Cardinals. So after all the things they did for him, rolling out the red carpet, it wasn't good enough for Kyler. And, he's got kind of a pattern of that post Allen High School. And now, ironically, he gets his ultimate wish, which he wanted back in 2022, which was to pick his own new team. And, unfortunately, the Cardinals paid the biggest price. And, it's regretful that Michael Bidwell ever caved in. We argued it, vociferously at the time, like it was going to be a huge mistake. And it was going to keep the team divided, and it was going to be a 2 or 3 year loss to the franchise, which it was. Now, Kyler's, his talent keeps your head in the game. As far as him, you think, oh, wow, if he just puts it together. And maybe he will. He's gotten. He said glowing things about Kevin O'Connell already. And so it'll, the respect is there now. We'll see if he can handle some tough love from a coach. If O'Connell's going to give it to him. Thus far, his record for doing that is 0. In fact, this is one of the main points I made in the article, is that with Kyler, it seems like to gain his fidelity and trust, it seems like you have to love him unconditionally. There's no room for criticism. There's no room for doubt. You just gotta love him and take him as he is. And that probably for him, the day that changes will probably be a turning point as to whether he can, build back an NFL type of profile as a quarterback that he had going for him in 2021, early on, when he was being discussed as an MVP candidate. So, it's just so ironic that on the Cardinals payroll, Kyler Murray, the Cardinals are paying him millions of dollars this year to play at the minimum in Minnesota. So Minnesota's getting all that benefit. Meanwhile, over in LA, our friend Cliff Kingsbury is on a minimum deal as assistant head coach with the Rams, with Michael Bidwell paying the lion's share of his $7.5 million contract, which, by the way, continues next year. So this is just bizarresville, that here we are 3 years later, and Kingsbury and Murray are in different spots getting paid by the Cardinals to do their thing. It's just such a debacle. But I think we're going to pivot here, because I know I'm one of the few, but I really like what Monti's doing with this roster. So we're going to go down the roster and discuss the position groups and the priorities. And I wrote an article, a blog to this effect, called Noah's Ark. So I saw Monti in a pattern trying to build a strong 2-deep roster through free agency and the guys that he's re-signed to come back. And we'll take it, so there it was. See the pairs of animals coming into the ark. So let's start with quarterback, or we're starting with the defense. Strong outside linebacker, Zaven Collins and Jordan Birch. I guess the hope here is that Jordan Birch, despite really having a disappointing rookie season, can emerge as a bell cow there. Zaven Collins is in the last year of his deal. He's made some consistent progress. He's still not a premier pass rusher, and Birch potentially could be. But I think when we look down at this draft and look at the possibilities they could have at number 3 to improve the pass rush opposite Josh Sweat, we can get excited about adding to that spot. Your thoughts, Sam, on Collins and Birch?
They're solid players. I always have liked Zaven, and I think Birch has an opportunity to be a solid starter. But other than Sweat, who was excellent his first season,
Yes.
there's nobody on the edge who's proven to be a high-level sack threat.
Right.
So I'm anxiously waiting to see what they do at number 3.
Yeah, and let's remind everyone that for all of Gannon's bluster and Monti Fort's passing on the likes of Will Anderson Jr. Which people still argue was a good move by the Cardinals. It's just unbelievable to me how you could still make that argument. Paris Johnson Jr., who they had to give a whole bunch of picks to come back up and get, so it negated a lot of the transfer there, is a good player. He's not a great player yet, and he's injured. So you got to worry about that. Love the character, love the guy, love the potential. But saying we've got an elite great tackle at this point, again, is incessant hyperbole from Cardinals fans who seem to want to put their top draft picks on pedestals. Meanwhile, if you look at Will Anderson Jr., who could be the guy there right now, could have been, should have been, the guy is elite. I mean, he is spectacular. I mean, I put up, he's got like 230 pressures in 3 seasons and 41 sacks. Zaven Collins has like 70 pressures and 10 sacks or something like that. It's just not even close. I mean, so what you're giving up to get, all that. Now, I hope PJJ, and he's heading into year 4, has his best season yet, comes back in great shape, which I think has been a problem. I don't think he's been in great shape. And I don't think a lot of the Cardinals players have been in great shape, and they better turn that shit around, or we're going to have more of the same injuries and less than stellar play. So, but it's too bad that we missed out on that. Birch is a hopeful. Collins sets the edge. He had a woeful year for him tackling last year. I don't know what's up with that. I think he's out of position. I think we were wasting the best years of his football career, putting him on an edge when he is a slobber-knocking Mike linebacker who has range in the passing game. And it was a regretful decision. And probably since Rallis is still there, Collins is still going to be on the edge starting. So let's go to the next. Okay, so strong defensive end. Walter Nolan, Jonah Williams, who they just picked up, is a interior pass rusher. He's not as strong in the run game. Nolan can do both. Nolan is a stud, but injured. We don't know ACL, the extent of where he is in his rehab and whether he's going to be available week 1. So I think the Cardinals have to take that into consideration in the draft as well. And I think with a day 2 pick, they've got to take another defensive lineman, particularly in light of the struggles of Darius Robinson, who we'll get to in a minute. But this needs addressing. Kyle, what's your take on Nolan?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of him, but certainly, I think the fact that he's still in year 2 gets me more excited than like Collins, because I think they were both the 16th pick in the draft,
right?
But Collins is A, 1 year left on his deal, B, 26 years old, and C, is kind of playing out of position, to your point, which is funny. I pulled up Zaven Collins' Football Reference. I think he has like 4 different positions listed as his position over his 5 years in the league so far. So at least with Nolan, you can say, yes, he's younger. Yes, he's playing in a more ideal fit, and the talent is certainly there. I mean, I remember people were saying they got a steal when they picked him up at 16 in the draft last year. And those, I think those are the players you can get excited about on defense. They always say in the draft process, offensive linemen and defensive linemen very often play up to whatever their skill set is. The guy who gets picked in the top 10 at offensive line or defensive line is usually great. And Nolan is top 10 talent from last year's draft. So you certainly want to believe that the health will all be there and he's going to be ready to go. But you didn't see a lot of him last year, and the snaps he did play, they were for a defense that was struggling in so many areas and had so many injuries across the board. So I'm still pretty optimistic about Walter Nolan, even though we haven't seen very much of him so far.
Yeah. So, we'll be very excited to get him back, and hopefully he's going to be a tip-top shape and health when we get him. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know very much about Jonah Williams, the defense Jonah Williams. So
yeah, he played for the Saints. He's a classic 34 defensive end what do you call it? Prototype. He's 6'5", 290. What he did well for the Saints is I think he had 3 sacks last year. So you can get to the quarterback. His run blocking, run defense grades are meh so far. But that's something you can, with Coach K, he might be able to turn that around for him. So he's got the strength, the body. He's not Calais Campbell, but he's, obviously, because few people are. And who knows? Maybe they bring Calais back. He's still out there. So that'd be a really cool thing, I think, if they could.
Well,
yeah. So, and he is a relative unknown. Monti was taking a flyer on him, and it's at minimal. He's a little bit above the minimum to come in here and vie for a rotation spot. So I like the thinking by Monti, particularly since he offers some upside as a pass rusher. So let's go on to the nose tackles. Roy Lopez comes back. Really excited about that. Hated to see him go in the first place, and I think it's a coup for the Cardinals to outbid the Lions and others to get Lopez back. And I want to give Monty a lot of credit for that because that took some doing. Then Andrew Billings just got added. He is a big, nasty zero technique nose tackle who can get after it and plug up the run game. We needed that. We really need that. There are opposing styles at nose. Lopez is a quicker kind of shoot the gap 1 or 2 technique. Billings is a 0. Mustafa can do both. So we've definitely built some strength there in the middle with these moves.
Yeah,
and the Billings contract was very affordable. I mean, it's not a Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols scenario that which now in the rearview mirror. So Sam.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed with what we've done.
Okay.
On the line. No one other than Nolan projects as anything close to an impact player. And I say all this with the caveat that the Cardinals are sitting on $31 million left to spend.
Right.
So I'm assuming that, and that's after they paid their rookies. So given who they've signed, for example, I'm thrilled, and of course they had to replace Dalvin Tomlinson, who was a complete disaster here.
Right.
Who, however, was immediately signed by the Chargers on a very solid contract. So what do? You let Tomlinson go, smart move, but who do you replace him with? So I've never watched a play of Andrew Billings, and I'm sure Monty has. But I'll tell you this, if you look at PFF, if you look at some of the experts, this guy is ranked 131 out of 134 defensive linemen. So you dump Tomlinson, great. How are we going to improve? Andrew Billings? I don't think so.
I think he's a role guy.
Well, of course he's a role guy, but right. And this really comes down to what they're going to do in the draft. So you have to leave that out there. But as far as I'm concerned, if they finish free agency, and I want to also say, having said all that, I'm thrilled Roy Lopez is back. He's a solid run stuffer, but he's a rotational player. And we didn't stop anyone. And I can't remember the last time we've ever stopped anyone running the football against this defense. So my expectations were we're going to dump Tomlinson. We're going to bring in a better guy. And that hasn't happened.
Well, I'm glad that we finally have one of these developmental projects come to Arizona and be a success, even if Roy Lopez had to leave and come back. Because it's like, was it 2 years ago? They had like him, Chris Tonga, who was amazing for the Patriots, and he got cashed out. And I think Naquan Jones, I think he's still around the league somewhere. But they had like all of these young developmental guys, and then they all left to go somewhere else. And they had no production at the position last year. So at the very least, they brought back Roy Lopez, who was kind of like the shining success story of their player development over him and Tonga over the last however many years of the Nick Rallis regime.
Yeah. Interesting, Kyle. If you will check your email, I just sent you a link to a Billings video. Yeah, I saw the grades like you did, and I saw, well, what? Because I've always thought of Billings as a really good run stuffer, and he rocks. I mean, as a zero technique, he really rocks the center. He makes it very difficult. So, but then I saw this video, and I think, if Kyle can pull it up, there's some interesting stuff here going on. Watch this. So he's 97 right here. Good lateral quickness to get to the ball. Sheds blocks pretty well. I was impressed.
That was a pretty good move on, I think that was Dickerson, right?
Notice he's zero technique all the way. Outside shoulder here a little bit, but, that's a good play right there. Can swim the gap. Here he's taking on the double team and gets through it. He's got power at the point of attack, which you like. And good hands. Swims through.
So we think at this point, I didn't see the contract that he was offered, but he's going to be a bit of a situational guy at this point for them?
Yeah,
or do you think he...
Yeah, and plus you got to play goal line. I mean, he'll be really good in the goal line. I mean, for a guy coming in at basically a contract, a low, team-friendly contract, with his experience and ability to blow up some plays and to hold his own. Look at that. I mean, holding his own as a zero technique, and commanding a double team. I think it's if you were giving him Justin Jones money, absolutely not. But in this case, maybe it's good karma for having lost out on Jones and Nichols, that we got a guy who can play the role, as a zero when we want to play zero technique. Put it that way. And there'll be times when we really want to do that. But he's got some upside. He really does. And PF grades on defensive tackles typically are really tough. And I'm not sure what the coefficient is. Like, you can do everything right on a play, but not make the tackle because your job is to command the double team or whatever. And you can stand up that double team and even swim through it and not really being given a positive grade on that play when it should be an A. But, he's got the physical presence and power to command the zero technique. So I think it's a good move at this point, especially since he contrasts Roy Lopez, who's more of a one or two technique, to try to who tries to shoot the gaps and be disruptive. And Lopez has a pass rush in his bag that Billings doesn't. You're not going to have Billings in on passing downs, but you will have Lopez in there. And Mustafa, I thought, played pretty dang well. He stacks and sheds. He's very physical. He's coming on. This kid has work ethic, so
yeah,
I'm hopeful about him. Let's go to weak defensive end. Darius Robinson, Dante Stills, Zachary Carter. Stills is in a contract year, coming off a disappointing year last year. We know he has pass rush ability, so it's a big year for him. Darius Robinson started to come on towards the end of the year and made some splash plays. Not enough of them, obviously, and not a lot of them early. But it'll be interesting to see what Coach K does with Darius Robinson, because he's got, such a good frame. He's got a weak side 34 defensive end type prototypical physique. But he's got to obviously get unlocked. And maybe we have the coach now to do it. I think, guys, and our Red Rain blog guys, this is what happens. And Dalvin Tomlinson, and things like that. When you hire a coach from college to come in year 3 of a coaching regime, I mean, the gravitas is as exciting and as ebullient as Coach Debo was. The gravitas isn't there, nor is the expertise. So you're not getting nuanced professional coaching right off the bat. As much as you like the guy and you like his potential, but to now have Coach Kwiatkowski coming in with all his cred, and he's been an accomplished defensive coordinator as well, with always been strong in coaching defensive lines as he was at Texas. Now it's a different ballgame. He comes from college, but he's coached pros and he's a professional style coach. So I think we're in better hands, better shape. And for him to, he may, I'm sure he's got Darius Robinson singled out as a pet project to, and at the behest of the Cardinals front office. Can you get this guy unlocked? And, Sam, what do you see in Darius Robinson?
Oh, I'm not high on Darius Robinson. He's the 27th player picked in that draft, and he's an underperformer, an underachiever. I hope the coach can straighten him out. Yeah. Then you look at old Dante Stills. He's out sacking the entire room. because Monti drafted Robinson, they're burying Stills. He's a sixth round pick.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what this coach does with both these guys. I hope they both improve. And if they don't, I hope this coach has the gravitas to look the franchise in the eye and say, we're starting Stills. You missed one here, Monty. You missed another one here, Monty. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not high on Darius Robinson at all. He's a tweener. I don't think he fits. And we'll see how he does. Okay. I'm rooting for him.
Me too. Really, really good guy. Really has, I think, football character and a work ethic. He's just been overwhelmed. And I think starting off with that calf injury was a really tough blow. Hopefully we don't have these soft tissue injuries that keep recurring. Haven't heard a word yet about how they're going to approach it this year already, and it's March. So let's get Kyle's. Let's go to the weak side edges. We got Josh Sweat, who arguably, in my opinion, deserved a Pro Bowl. Baron Browning, which is interesting, they just paid him a $2 million bonus on top of his, in 2 years, he's making $15 million for basically having a really down year last year. I'm really surprised they held on to his contract, particularly in light of where we are in the draft and in a position to take one of the top edge rushers. And BJ Ojolari. Lil Rock, go down the line here. Sweat, Browning, Ojolari, what are your takes?
Well, Sweat obviously is your premier defensive player at this point. There's no, I mean, he should have been a Pro Bowler last year, wasn't a Pro Bowler. Honestly, the Pro Bowler is a weird gauge for success, but you look at all of his PFF grades, you look at all of his basic numbers, even just his sacks and pressures and things you can measure like that. Great free agent signing. They knew he was going to be a premier free agent signing. Now, to your point earlier, part of bringing in Josh Sweat and paying Josh Sweat the way they have is you didn't take Will Anderson, your premier pass rusher, at the beginning of the rebuild. And they didn't get a lot of production on the other side rushing the passer. The soft outside linebacker position last year had a bit of a tough time, but I still think Sweat, pencil him in, great right there. I was just looking up Browning's contract. So this is the last year of his deal, but he carries like you said, like a $9 million cap hit for next season, which is
what?
I guess, yeah, it's a little strange, especially for a spot pass rusher. Now, between him and Collins, they're both off of contract at the end of the season. You've got Birch, who we talked about, like could be an every down back potentially in the future if everything goes well, but they still need to address the position, and maybe that's going to be a David Bailey or somebody in the draft. I don't know, but Browning and Collins both being on 1-year deals that are kind of in the middle class is a little strange, given we all feel like they still need production at the position.
Right.
So the fact that they've made that financial investment at the position is a little bit strange. And then Ojolari, I have no idea what you're going to get out of him after 2 major surgeries and missing the time that he has. I don't even know if the weak outside linebacker position is his true position going forward, but that seems to be where he's probably going to find his time. But I have no idea what you're going to get with BJ Ojolari. But in fairness, but by the way Browning is getting paid and Sweat is getting paid, those two should be playing every down, or even potentially playing downs together on the field. So as long as you've got Sweat, you've got a good room. But the Browning and Collins, I don't know, if Monti truly is on the clock for his job. And we know Browning was Monti's big trade a couple years ago. Collins was extended, not a Monti pick, but was extended by Monti and Rallis has had him playing basically every game Rallis has had as defensive coordinator. I think both of those, you've kind of got real questions about what their long-term futures in Arizona are. And I guess that comes down to what they're going to do in the draft also. Because if they draft another outside linebacker or an edge rusher, then I don't know where the future, I don't know where those guys kind of stack up in the conversation. If both of them are on 1-year contracts and neither of them are going to be the starter week 1.
Yeah. So here's the critique of Monti and how he's handled the pass rush, particularly at the edge. So he's the only GM with a defensive-minded head coach who wasn't going to draft a quarterback, in my opinion, who would have ever in the world passed on Will Anderson Jr., who was clearly the bell cow defender, and I mean premier defender in that draft class. So you pass on him with the notion of, well, Zaven Collins has a similar body type. We're going to shift him out to the edge. And then we're going to make all these trades. And then we're going to reach for BJ Ojolari to address the position in round 2, knowing he has a medical red flag with a busted up knee. Makes no sense whatsoever. And meanwhile, Brian Branch is on the board. And people will say, well, no, we got Garrett. Well, no. Brian Branch, way better than
Absolutely.
Garrett Williams.
Absolutely.
Way better.
Yeah.
That's like saying, well, we got Paris Johnson. Will Anderson Jr., way better than Paris Johnson. Sorry. It's just the reality.
Well, and the other pick you used on Darius Robinson, which so far hasn't been an impact player. So
that hasn't worked out, right?
No, but that's
Aaron
the point.
Browning was the trade.
Yep.
And for a while there, it looked pretty good. But now he got a bag, and he's, I'm not saying he's a loafer or anything, but he was awful last year. I mean,
Browning had 2 sacks all last year and was hurt all the time. Just like he was in Denver. He's always hurt.
Always hurt. Here's another thing. Here's a guy who's always hurt, and you're throwing him a $15 million 2-year deal, and you just gave him a $2 million roster bonus to keep him on.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, it's just it's not good football practice, right? And then, so all of these moves to try to counter passing on Will Anderson Jr., all of them have failed. All of them to this point. You can't say, look people in the eye and go, Zaven Collins instead of Will Anderson Jr. at strong outside linebacker was at least a good move. It hasn't been. Not if you value a pass rush. This is why you are 30th, 29th, and 30th, 3 years in a row in sacks in the NFL with a defensive-minded head coach. I mean, it's amazing that Sweat got as much accomplished as he did because there was nobody else to double team. So he faced some chips and double teams, and he still got it done. So kudos to him.
Yeah.
There was a rumor that once JG was fired, Sweat wants out. I don't know if you heard that, but since then, Mac Wilson has tried to diffuse that notion. But if he does want out, you ought to trade him because he's got high value. And I'm of that mindset now. You want out, we'll get it done. Have your agent drum up a deal that works for us. We'll get it done. Because we got to stop keeping players hostage. We got to get players who really want to be here and really want to turn this thing around. All right, let's move on to the inside linebackers.
I have one other money note. So between Sweat, Browning, and Collins, I think they're paying like $35 million against the cap this year versus like Will Anderson's about to get $35 million a year on whatever his next contract is.
And I'd trade all of them for Will Anderson Jr. like that. All right.
Well, that's why they kept Browning. So they're paying him $10 million, but they're not going to have to pay Joey Bosa or somebody else who's going to be a hell of a lot better. Twice that.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing here. Plus, Monti is not admitting another mistake.
That's a great point. That is a great point.
Yeah. That is a really good point. You want to elaborate on that?
Which one?
Monti covering up for, not wanting to make another mistake.
Oh, well, he's got Darius on his hands too. So there you go. So he's got Darius and Browning. He has those. He has those guys all over the squad. If we let every player who wants to leave a team coming off a 3-win season, looking at this season, what's going to happen this season with the 4th toughest schedule, Monti's going to be fielding a lot of calls from a lot of agents asking for their walking papers.
And what worries me, especially now that the decision was to bring Rallis back.
Well, there's no question. Look at Max Melton's response to that. But you got a guy like Sweat who came off a Super Bowl caliber franchise, and now he's on the Cardinals. You think he's happy?
No,
he's not happy. The only thing he's happy with is our Arizona weather.
And that paycheck. That paycheck's
nice. Beautiful, but he could get that paycheck anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and the other part too is like he came over as, I don't remember if he was a Gannon guy, but he came over to a system that they were already running in Philadelphia too. And now Gannon's gone. I guess the defense is still in place, but it's like the guy who was running your defense is gone. So I don't know. He's got the money, and he's productive, so they'll keep him around. But the paycheck and the weather certainly is nice.
Sweaty's getting sweaty right now in Arizona.
Yeah.
Heat. He's our best pickup, Monti's best pickup, and solved a lot of problems. That gives you hope. But look at again the trickle effect. You pass on Will Anderson, right? To get this extra pick in the next year's draft, which winds up being Darius Robinson, which unfortunately has not worked out yet. You move Zaven Collins away from inside linebacker, which, by the way, our inside linebackers have not been good for 3 years. I'm sorry about Mac Wilson. Check his PFF grades. He's not a great – no one else in the NFL will play that guy at Mike. Right. Now, he's a good off-the-ball edge guy. He's really good at that. The Patriots put him there, and he thrived. He had like an 82.5 PFF grade when the Cardinals signed him in free agency. But then they immediately move him into positions where he's not physically suited to succeed, even though he's got the want-to of any football player in the NFL, which he makes up for because of his hustle. But, the Mike we have in the building who can handle the spot is Cody Simon. He was a natty defensive MVP for shutting down Jeremiah Love and Price in the national championship game. And he and Sonny Styles had great games controlling that Notre Dame vaunted running attack. They just stuffed it to where Notre Dame had to pass all day long. And then once that happened, they were just Ohio State was running away with it. He's the guy that can play the mic and have the green dot, and he's got the speed to get to hang with receivers on a wheel route, which Mac does not. That's why I shifted Mac over to the weak. Owen Pappoe is probably a better call there because of his speed. And I don't know why they don't unlock him because he's got all kinds of ability. When he came in on a spot start for Akeem Davis Gaither last year, he lit it up. He had a great game. And then they go right back to ADG like a week later. It's just like, what are you doing? And now ADG is gone. They did let go of him.
Yeah.
Now, what's really interesting is they just signed Jack Gibbons, who was quite a surprise on the Patriots last year. He's got size and speed and playmaking ability, and he's pretty good in coverage. This was a really under-the-radar signing for the Cardinals, and I'm really excited about it. I think he projects to weak, so I probably would have Simon with Gibbons starting. I just put him there today because these Austin Keys, I was just typing in fast, like I had Andrew Billings. I was just typing in fast to get this ready for today. Austin Keys was a practice squad guy they got, who might be a factor. I don't know. I don't know much about his game, but I do know about Owen Pappoe. He's got blazing speed, and he's a good blitzer. I think in a contract year, this could be, he could really step up. Mac, I'd move over to the edge in situational football where he can rush and cover flats. He's great at that. So, we've got depth there. Sam, what's your sense of this group?
I think this put a big smile on my face. I really like what Monti did here. He's created competition at a position that we need to improve on. Gibbons, I think, will push both Simon and Mac. Gibbons is he's your typical thumper. He has extensive experience playing the middle. And I think camp competition will help the staff decide whether that Wilson is better suited for his natural will or weak side position. And I wouldn't be surprised if Gibbons, who has a lot of experience and is a really good signal caller, he's certainly that way when he played for the Patriots, he might be our starter and he might push Simon to the bench. Mac is a tremendous player. He's just being played out of position. Having said all that, typical Cardinal crap, Bidwill accounting, I call it. So they saved $5 million, and look at Davis Gaither is no one to really miss, and they may bring him back on a smaller contract, but he was the leading tackler for this team last year. So we cut our leading tackler.
Yeah.
And it was very smart because they got Gibbons for a fraction. But you're sitting on $30 million. Why wouldn't you bring Gaither back?
At a reduced salary. Yeah.
Yeah, reduced salary or look, they saved pennies on him. Meanwhile, they made the decision to keep Browning for twice that money. So, but having said, forget what I said about Davis Gaither. I like this move by Monti. We got strong competition at this position, which is what we should have at every position, which frankly we don't. So I really like this move. And I think picking up Gibbons, and Monti has a history with him. I think he was in Tennessee when Monti was there, the Patriots guy. So I think this was a really sneaky, smart move that's going to create competition at this position. And maybe we'll really get lucky and they'll draft Styles, although I don't think that's going to happen now.
And if they do, Simon and Styles, if you check how they played in the playoffs against, three of the top offenses in America.
Yep.
They were spectacular. And, so Styles is so smooth. And gifted. He is wow. And his RAS score is off the chart. I mean, he's like 9.99. So raw athletic score. Let's go to the secondary. All right. So at left corner, Will Johnson, good zone corner. Not so good at man. Max Melton, good man corner. Met in zone. Starling Thomas, probably the most well-rounded of the three, coming off an ACL. What's your take on that, Kyle? Johnson, Melton, and Thomas.
Well, we know how Max Melton feels about coming back to the defense this year, but he was also, I think people were bashing on him last year, and he was tweeting back about how he didn't allow a touchdown all season and things of those sorts. So, Max is a fine player who is still young and has room to grow, certainly.
Yes.
But the quote unquote future of the position certainly is Will Johnson. I mean, first round talent. They got him in the second round. You pointed out week after week this year, Walter, the tackling wasn't there for Will Johnson. Some of the coverage lapses weren't there, were very evident last year. But he should be the future of the position. They should hope that whatever happened this offseason, whether it's working on his game or getting in the film room with Rallis or whatever it was that was going on with him last year and everything that was happening with the Cardinals, that either like a switch flips or just something changes in his dynamic.
Because, Good call. That's exactly my issue with him. Is on one play he's great, the next play he sucks.
Yeah, and I genuinely don't know what to chalk that up to.
Right.
But the hope is that whatever it was, something changes. Either it's in the film room, it's the mindset coming into the season, it's a health thing. I don't know what it was, but Will Johnson certainly is the future at that position. He's got all the talent. He is the most talented cornerback the Cardinals have had in years. and he is your hope for the future of the position.
Yeah, but no, because I mean, I get it. The hype on him is so high, but there's a reason why he didn't run a 40. I mean, he's not fast, and it shows up in man coverage. He doesn't have recovery speed. He's great when he can see the football and jump it in zones. Otherwise, he's maybe not even average. And what's a deal breaker for me is if you're going to make tackling efforts like Pat P, don't want you. I don't care if you're good in zones or not. We cannot have this continue in Arizona. To play the cornerback position in today's NFL, you got to ball and ball consistently, not just now. To Johnson's credit, every now and then he comes out of nowhere with a shoulder, boom, like he did against the Saints in the first game. And you think, whoa, here he is. But then the next play, he's like, grabbing grass, and it doesn't look the part, doesn't want anything to do with it. So I think this is a pivotal year for him and how, he reacts to Zach Etheridge, his new cornerbacks coach from Miami. And if you look at Zach Etheridge's mantra for cornerback play, tackling is number one. Tackling. All right, so we're going to see something make or break with that with Johnson. Melton, I think, is the most gifted man cover guy, smaller type that we have. And then Thomas, I've always liked. He's a solid player, but I don't know if he breaks into this. He's got an uphill battle to make, in my opinion, the roster this year because of all these draft picks. But let's move on to Buda Baker and Andrew Wingard, the new Pat Tillman. What are your thoughts, Sam, on Buda and Wingard?
Well, we got the rabbit there, right?
Well, and then with the free safety, let's add them to it. The free safeties, Rabbit and Keaton.
Yeah. So, I mean, Wingard is a really good special teams player, but he's being asked to fill the shoes of Jalen Thompson. I'm going to miss Jalen Thompson. I'm thrilled he's now on a quality franchise. He's picked up immediately. So, he played for Jacksonville. They didn't even want to pay Wingard $3 million. So I think he's a hype signing. I'm not excited about it. And I hope Buda stays healthy. I hope Rabbit stays healthy and keep our fingers crossed. And then you've got Garrett Williams. I don't know if he's going to come back healthy. He could step in as safety in certain situations. And he had a terrible last year. Hey, right. Everybody but Buda and Rabbit had a soft year too, but he's another guy who got hurt. A lot of big questions in the backfield. Right. Nobody looked good. Max Melton is my new favorite player on the entire squad.
Yep.
Because of that video he released after his heralded defensive coordinator was re-signed. So I'm rooting for Max Melton big time.
You can't get over that. I
love it.
Buda's coming off his worst year as a pro.
Yeah.
They took away his bread and butter game by asking him to play cushion.
Yep.
And it's all about timing with Buda. You can't ask him to take a first step backward in a defense for him. That's not his game. Wingard, I think, is a lot better than people realize. He's made a lot of good plays. The reason why, he was Coach Campaneel's safety. He started 16 games last year. The problem with him is he had to try to adapt to their new coverage schemes, and it took a while. He was really struggling because Coach Camp runs an exotic kind of defense, a attack style defense. So, like Wingard was second on their team in tackling. The dude tackles. He is a really good tackler. And he's played a good center field at times in his career. He's intercepted the Cardinals in a key situation. That's floating around the internet. In fact, twice he did. But they wanted something different coverage wise on the back end from Wingard. I projected him here as more of a box safety, but he can't, because I think Rabbit's more talented in the deep middle. Same thing with Crawford, who I really like. And I'm wondering if you can see what he could do in the slot, Crawford. He's got the quickness. He's got the aggressiveness. Because this is where we're weak, is in the slot. Elijah Jones, to me, is the best man cover guy on the team. Why he's being ghosted by Rallis is one of the great mysteries and sticking points for me that just disgusts me, to tell you the truth. Denzel Burke played better than I thought in man, and he's a good zone corner. He's an aggressive guy. I like him, and I think there's a future for him here. But again, you got to tackle, and his tackling efforts were up and down. Catrell Clark, love him as a baller. This will be his last year. They've always backburnered him. Rallis has. He's come in and played really good games, and like they did with Papo, come in for a game. Clark can come in and star, and then the next week he's not even playing. So it's a kind of a mess in how they handle this. Now, here's the area that concerns me the most, is nickel corner. Garrett Williams, good zone nickel, not good man nickel. We need a guy who can cover Puka man to man. We need a guy who can cover Devontae Adams when he's in the slot, man to man. We need a guy who can cover Jackson Smith-Njigba, man for man, like White on Rice. We don't have that guy on the roster right now, in my opinion. We need a guy to cover Cooper Kupp, who hurt us and was really good in the playoffs this year. It was a real factor. And we need a guy to cover Christian Kirk now in San Francisco, Ricky Pearsall, who probably is going to have a really good bounce back here. In other words, and then, of course, Christian McCaffrey, when he lines up in the slot, you need a stud to go up against him. Williams, Bunting, all these guys don't have the quickness or speed to do it. Why they brought back Sean Murphy-Bunting is beyond, because not only is he not good in man coverage, he's an abominable tackler. 29.4 grade when he played for us 2 years ago. That in itself would have said to me, it shows me who he is. I would have just said, wrong contract. We gave you too much money. Instead, they're bringing him back, which is just bizarre to me. And if they think he's the guy to man the slot and man, we are screwed. I mean, Puka would make mincemeat of this guy. So would Jackson Smith-Njigba. So would Christian McCaffrey. So heading into the draft, in my opinion, we've got slot corner has got to be one of the top 2 or 3 priorities. And so now, before we, yes. Would you read that, pal?
Yes. So this was Walter's tweet. This is in the same story if anyone wants to go read it. The problem is neither Garrett Williams nor Sean Murphy-Bunting have the requisite speed, short area quickness, fluid hips, and recovery ability to play sticky man-to-man from the slot. They both are good at playing zone coverage from the slot, which is where they've gotten their interceptions, not in man. Monti has drafted 7 cornerbacks, and 5 of them are best suited for zone. Only Max Melton and Elijah Jones are legit man-to-man corners. Max could be an asset in the slot, where Elijah is best suited to play man versus the X wide receiver to his side. Keontae Scott from the U is the perfect answer for the Cardinals. Or perfect answer, and the Cardinals now have his cornerbacks coach in Zach Etheridge. The other top slot corner in this draft is University of Arizona's Trey Dan Stukes.
Yep.
There's a good reason why the Rams paid so much to acquire Trent McDuffie. In the NFC West, teams have to have a slot corner to cover JSN, Kupp, Puka, Christian McCaffrey, Pearsall, etc. Right now, the Cardinals do not have that guy. I think Arizona State's Keith Dabney and Indiana's D'Angelo Pons could be very good in the slot, but Dabney only played there 13 snaps in 2025, and Pons had 6 snaps. It could take them a good deal of time to adjust, while Keontae Scott had 489 and Stukes had 380.
There it is. And then I offered up a mock. See, I think the defensive needs take priority here. Now, I know we need a tackle. I got an answer for that coming up. And we don't have time to go through we'll do the offense next week. But, at 3, we got to get one of those. Bain, Bailey. I wrote an article about Bailey comparing him not to Nick Benito, but to Brian Burns. And the numbers really match up well. In fact, Bailey's numbers on a number of key measurables were stronger than Brian Burns is coming out of the draft. So I love Bailey. I love Bain. Reese, you love the physical aspects of his game. So, but I have a sense that Reese is going to the Jets at 2. And so we'll have our pick between Bain and Bailey. And every day I can flip a coin. One day I want Bailey. One day I want Bain. But one of those two, recently, I got to be honest, I'm leaning towards Bailey. Just because he's just so dang quick. And his measurables are, and made to order. And I think he'd be a better immediate splash in the NFL than Bain. Although in time, I think Bain's going to be like such a baller deluxe. But what do you guys think at the top of that draft? Do you agree that it's Bain or Bailey or Reese? Or do you go in a different direction? Sam, started.
Yeah, out of the 3, Reese long-term may have the best career, but I like the other 2 a lot. Either one.
Yep.
Either they're plug and play. They're ready to go now. And I think either one would be a major catalyst to improving this defense.
Pass rush.
Yeah, I just yep. Yeah.
Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, the only other 2 prospects I would make the case for being worthy of the number 3 pick are potentially Sonny Styles and potentially the safety Downs. But again, positional need wise, the Cardinals don't need to reach on a safety or anything like that. So I would say if the Jets take Bailey, take Reese. If the Jets take Reese, take Bailey. If you feel like Bain is going to be better, I haven't seen a lot of mock drafts that have Bain going in the top 4, but if you feel like Bain is better, I think Bain's like the number 5 overall prospect or something, or 6 overall prospect. So like, if you feel like Bain is going to be that special guy, then go for it. But yeah, I think it's either Bailey or Reese for me. If you're the Cardinals, guaranteeing that you're going to get one of those 2, I feel like you go with whichever one's available.
There's another guy too that I would put up there that I've been watching tape on. Mansour Delane, the corner from LSU. He is sticky. Unbelievable technique. And he's at LSU in the SEC, transferred from Virginia Tech. Has this unbelievable season. Get this, plays in the SEC, dominates, and neither does he have one penalty all year or give up any touchdowns against the best receivers in college football. And he tracks the best. He was a lockdown on the best receivers on the other team. When you watch his tape, he's not the fastest guy in the book. He's all leverage and recovery, and glue. I mean, he is special. It's just that you'd want him to be maybe a touch faster. But when you play with touch, what he reminds me of is Quinion Mitchell. You know how great he was for the Eagles as a rookie. I helped win him a Super Bowl, and he was just as good last year. So, so he's not off the charts fast, but he plays the position fundamentally as well as I've seen in a college corner play. But I think he's a reach at 3. If he were faster, I think he'd be a legit choice at 3. And so, yeah, I mean, you summarized it well. I mean, when they signed Algiers, I think that said we're not taking Love. You agree?
I don't think they were ever going to take Jeremiah Love. I know that was kind of the sexy thing that some mock drafts are putting out there. I don't think they were ever really considering taking Jeremiah Love. As good as he is, I don't think he's a top 5 pick. Like, I don't know if he's that like guy who's going to come in and immediately have 1,500 yards.
Right. And I was thinking Bidwell would take him. Bidwell likes to jump in and veto and take the top draft pick. And he often relates it to tickets. And if there's one player who probably would get more buzz than any other for tickets, it's Jeremiah Love. Other than Fernando Mendoza, you're not going to be able to touch Mendoza.
Offense sells.
So, I mean, people will be like, oh, my God, I got to come see this. Yeah. And it could set up a potential down the road. I mean, this is probably James Conner's last year in Arizona. Yeah. And then it could set up what the Falcons had with Bijan and Tyler Algier. Like now would it be Love and Algier for the next, 4 years or whatever, 3-4 years. But they got to do something about this pass rush. They got to get someone opposite Sweat to get consistent heat on the quarterback, and they've got to climb out of the cellar of sacks. So to me, that's number one priority. Yes, we need a right tackle, although, we'll talk about that in a minute. So then in my mock, I went down second round looking for the best defensive interior. Although I'm tempted to take Keontae Scott there rather than risk losing out on him, because I think a lot of people value this. He was the key, other than Bain. Keontae Scott was the key to Miami's defense. The way that Etheridge used him as not only a sticky cover guy from the slot, playing like 490 snaps, he was a fantastic blitzer. Timed up, queued him up perfectly, and he was just such a baller and playmaker. That kid is awesome. Now, I sort of knew I would be able to get him at 65 because he was ranked 67 on this board. But I don't know. I think a lot of teams looking at him. So I'm tempted to take Scott right there. But seeing Cade McDonald was on the board, I jumped all over that. And then hoped to get Scott, and he was there. So, but, and then by 104, it was too late to take the offensive. There's no offensive lineman there. But here's my thought. Taylor Decker?
Mm-hmm.
Decker. Well, Dave Sears was a part of drafting. That was one of Sears' great moments in the draft, was drafting him. And he's been let go by the Lions. Now he's been a left tackle. His grades were good last year, not great. So, I think he was battling a couple injuries, but not of the serious nature. but he's been a Pro Bowler for years, and he's out there. And Dave Sears knows him, and I mean, like the back of his hand. Why not try to get him? Like, you got this $31 million that Sam's talking about. Yeah, let's use it. Let's get him in here, and with the idea of moving him to right tackle at this point in his career. I bet he'd embrace it, and I think he'd be fine with it. And that solves that for a couple of years. So you get him on a 2-year deal or whatever, because you're getting a Pro Bowl caliber athlete and player at that position. And then you also are developing Josh Fryer, who, like I said, I mean, in the building, they really see the future for this kid. So I know you want sexy, and I know you want top 3 draft picks and all that. There are guys who actually look at some of the Eagles guys that they got undrafted who worked out amazing, or they drafted later in the draft, like Kelsey was a 6th rounder. They're a good offensive line you can find everywhere. And it's kind of a miracle that he slipped through the cracks in the draft last year, Fryer. And he showed at times last year why he's good. He's nasty in the running game. Nasty. He had that reputation, which got him first team all Big 12, Big 10 at Ohio State. And then, like his senior year at Ohio State, down the stretch of playing all those Texas and all those great defenses, 0 sacks at right tackle. 0 sacks. So, I mean, we got a player there we can develop. And then there's Christian Jones, who I think is really good at right tackle. The problem is they screwed it up, moving him over to left tackle, trying to make him a swing tackle. They were playing him more in the preseason at left tackle than they were right tackle. It just was a mess. This guy, Christian Jones, is a right tackle. And here's the last reason why I would say Decker would be great, is that if anything happens to Paris Johnson again, you can put Decker back over at left tackle and then Fryer at right tackle. So, and so Decker's not only a starter at right tackle, he's essentially your swing tackle, which we haven't had either, because we had to play Beach over on the left side. God bless Beach. He played as hard as he could back there. Fryer had to play the left side. He tried really hard. I thought he played a couple really good games like there last year, which really surprised me that he could play left tackle. But he is a right tackle. That is his position, and we should sort of stick with him there if we can. So, what do you think about Decker as a possibility at tackle, Sam?
Oh, I like it, because I sure don't like who they have there now. Brought in Wilkinson. That's her starter right now? Come on.
Monti has a thing for him. Yeah.
He's got to think for him, and he's got to think for players who they're trying to develop that don't fit LaFleur's wide run scheme, his wide zone offense. I mean, that offense lives and dies by lateral athleticism. What will save the left side is great. The left side is exactly what you want. What's going to save this offensive line is John Gaines. He's their guy. He's their guy who has the feet to move. He has that reach block in traffic cone in space.
Yep.
But you got heavy-footed players all over that right side. I don't know how Isaiah Adams, who they're trying to develop, is a slow-footed mauler.
Yeah.
So is Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor probably going to even get cut. That I don't understand that at all. Why you would bring in another guy who doesn't fit the scheme. I mean, these guys are primarily power gap blockers. So it's going to be up to our coach Fry to determine how we're going to do. Even Connor, who I like, he doesn't fit the scheme. He just doesn't fit that gap running scheme. These guys don't have the athleticism. Now they brought in Samalo, terrific. Although I would have preferred David Edwards, but he's younger. He would be more of a long-term cornerstone. But you have an offensive line that, again, is just, I call it Cardinal confusion. It's all contradictory building, and you hire a coach. None of these guys you brought in to other than Gaines fit the scheme. So we'll see what happens. This issue with right tackle and Decker would be that would be a really smart option. I would be happy with that, at least short term. But really gives me pause. The tackle, the can't miss tackle from Miami. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's another Mauler, doesn't fit the scheme.
Right.
So here you go, Walt. You got a guy out there who's really a terrific player. He certainly doesn't deserve to be in the top 5. He's probably going to be maybe in the top 10. And that's Spencer Fano. He is a perfect fit for this. However, not at 3. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Monti trade that first again, move down, get Fano, and pick somebody up late in the first.
Right.
I just wouldn't be surprised. And, I really like, and I had no idea and didn't know anything about him, this Kendrick Scott. They can walk away with Kendrick Scott. They have a solid slot defender, and they're going to need it because I don't see Garrett Williams coming back strong this year.
Right. And he's never been a man.
No, he's not.
So
no, he's not.
You love it. I think Garrett Williams has a future as a safety. I think you and I both agree about that. Because he's good at keeping plays in front of him, but with the caveat that he starts to tackle. You can't play safety and not be a tackler either. So, I mean, his tackling last year was just awful. And the whole secondary was just.
And then he's coming off with terrible
JT was the one tackler, and Crawford was pretty good. But other than that, even Rabbit had an off year tackling. It was really disgusting to watch. So, hopefully Zach Etheridge is going to take a tone, and with Terrell Austin now in the building, maybe we'll start playing much better in the secondary. Get him a pass rush and start playing man-to-man like big boys do in big games, and get those guys ready to do that. So next week we will look at the offense in detail. This is really cool the way that we were able to piece this all together defensively and to try to see where the needs are. I think we need man corners and we need edge rushers, and we might need an addition eventually to the inside linebacker spot. I think we're okay now, but So in round 2, I mean, and then you have this Landon Robinson who looks like a Aaron Donald clone. I mean, if he's sitting there in round 2, there's. So Kyle, as a parting shot, can you read this? This is really important, I think.
This is you talking about the inside linebacker position with Mack Wilson.
Yeah. All the Cardinal fans on X are like, he's a great Mike. And I'm trying to tell them why he's not. Here you go.
Big enough.
Right.
In terms of leadership and grit, you are 100% correct. The problem is Mack Wilson Sr.'s natural position is not at Mike. Cards are the only team in the NFL who's played him there and who would ever play him there. Same with Kaiser White.
1 sec. So this was Alex Clancy who made the argument on his podcast that Mack Wilson should have been the defensive MVP of the team last year. So that's why I'm saying in terms of leadership, you're 100% correct. Continue where you were.
The reason is neither Mack nor Kaiser have the speed or the range to play man coverage on the running back, particularly on the wheel route that the wheel route
Real
that
route.
have McVay and Shanahan have crushed the Cardinals with ever since Vance Joseph thought it was a good idea to put the statuesque Jordan Hicks at Mike. What playing them at Mike ensured was a ton of Gannon's caution and cushion zone coverage, which opponents consistently picked apart. With Cody Simon, he won Rose Bowl national championship defensive MVP because he showed the speed and range to be able to cover Jeremiah Love on wheel routes and swings, limiting him to 2 catches for 5 yards, plus helping to render Jeremiah to 3 yards on 4 carries between the tackles. It took a couple of games for Cody to assimilate into the Cardinals defense, which speaks in part to how unconventionally passive the defense is. But Cody came on strong late in the season, and he, unlike Mack, allows the coaches to play more man-to-man coverage. What I was hoping to see was the Cardinals changing to a 4-3 so that Cody could play Mike and Mack could play weak outside linebacker, which is his natural position, where the Pats used him during what was his best NFL season, often on blitzes, which is his forte. Mack was an MVP, but Josh Sweat by far was the MVP performer.
Yeah, Mack was an MVP leader. But performer, I mean, it's just hands down Josh Sweat. I mean, I get the emotion for, I mean, Mack Wilson is a really good leader. I mean, there's no denying it. It's just put him in the right spots so he can. That's the thing about coaching is, and players say this all the time, put me in the best spot to help me succeed. So putting the players where they belong, where their skill sets work best is a key component of good coaching, right? So, Sam, your final thoughts on today's show?
Well, I like that competition they've set up at that linebacker position, and I would not be surprised. It's exactly what you need at every position, and we have that here. And I would not be surprised to see Gibbons a starter somewhere there. And the question is, will a more experienced coaching staff at these positions convince the front office and their defensive coordinator that they should move Mack to the will and Gibbons is the guy with the dot? And then they'll need to continue to improve and grow Simon. But overall, I'm looking forward to talking about the offense because other than the offensive line, I think they've done a good job at running back. But, same old Cardinals. They signed 13 guys, the most in the division, and have spent the least amount of money to do so. When you sign 13 guys and only one is on a 3-year deal, that tells me they haven't signed foundational rebuild players for the long term. Clearly, all out of 13 players, 9 of them have 1-year deals. Those are guys who are going to plug in. They're journeymen that no other team wanted. They got them on the cheap. And those guys will play hard because this might be their last stop, but they're certainly going to work hard to put some film on some good film and maybe get another contract with the Cardinals or somewhere else. So it's not a foundational rebuild. And I say that again with $31 million sitting in the bank. When they started free agency, they had the sixth most spending power in the league. But that means nothing when you're dead last in talent.
Great stuff as always. Glad to have you back, my man. Thank you. Kyle, your concluding thoughts?
Well, you made a strong case for this being the deepest defense that the Cardinals have had, which, or at least in Monty's time. Which, to Sam's point, part of it is you don't have foundational pieces at certain key positions. We anticipate they'll draft an edge with the number 3 pick. So if that's a foundational piece, and then you've got Sweat, you've obviously got your 2 safety positions on lock with Buddha and the Rabbit, and then of course Keaton Crawford is there. The other name I didn't mention, I know he was hurt last year. I think Joey Blunt is still on the team. I think.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I know special teams
yeah.
guy, but obviously he had the awful injury
earlier
this year.
And he's got game in the secondary. He really does. He's got range. He can play the free, and he's one of the best tacklers on the team. So yes, that was an oversight. I should have had him in there. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know he was out all last season, but
no, he'll be back.
I thought he's there. Yeah. So you throw that into the depth piece. The safety room, great as always. You lose Jalen Thompson and you still feel like you're in a really good spot. Obviously you have the edge rushers you're feeling good about potentially. You feel great about Simon. You know, everyone believes in this guy and think that might be the long-term solution at the middle linebacker position. And if you get him in the, was it a 3rd or 4th round pick? I mean, all the better if that's where you're drafting your potential middle linebacker of the future, captain of your defense. But it comes down to the cornerback room, and it comes down to those linebackers, like you mentioned, Walter. If you are going to be able to play man coverage, you're going to be able to stick on slot corners and even some X corners. I mean, you know, Will Johnson and Elijah Jones are no sure things, even at the X and outside boundary corner positions. So that's the thing that they're going to have to hone in on. They have so many names in there that I don't see them taking one in that 2nd round pick. I could absolutely be wrong, considering they have the needs on the offensive line. They still have some needs long-term in the wide receiver room, especially that slot position. I know they signed Kendrick Bourne. I don't think Kendrick Bourne is the long-term answer at that position for them.
Right.
But given some of those needs, you know, maybe they take a corner, maybe they don't, but they certainly have a lot of names. And, you know, hopefully it is that a Will Johnson or an Elijah Jones or a Garrett Williams takes the bull by the horns and runs with it, instead of Sam's point, which I think I lean closer towards, which is you've just brought in a bunch of depth guys, veterans, rookies that are on the last couple years of their contract, and they're not going to be long-term answers at the position. So we'll see. But after doing this podcast, I think I agree with you, Walter. I think this might be the deepest defense that Monty has had in his 4 seasons with the Arizona Cardinals.
Right. And then great stuff, Little Rock. Great summary. And then we can argue, if you're not going to play Buddha right, you don't have a star in him anymore. So, I mean, this is number one priority with the guys that we have coming back, is you either have to do Buddha justice or you have to trade him to a coach who will play him properly. We can't watch a Buddha like this again, ever. And I don't think it's his fault, because he's a timing tackler, and you got to give him that game and that freedom. You can't have him backing up off a snap. You just can't, because he won't get there in time, and he'll miss, because when you storm the alley, you got to get to the running back before he can make his cut. And Buddha, no one in the NFL is better at that than Buddha Baker. But if you delay his path down the alley by a second, now the running back gets that cut. And nobody can defend that. You know, it's so hard to make the tackle on that, given that's the case. And Buddha's not a breakdown tackler. He's a run-through-you tackler, right? So that's a huge part of what we need to have fixed in this in the secondary is doing justice for Buddha. I mean, and then the next thing is that, you know, these soft zones aren't working. And, you know, and trying to hide a guy at middle linebacker who you don't want to use in man coverage is aiding and abetting these soft zones. And then the middle linebacker doesn't play well in coverage anyway in your zones. He's not great. He's not terrible. Well, he actually, the year before, he and Kaiser were the two worst in the league in coverage. I mean, they gave up like 90% completion percentages combined. And all sorts of racks, which you can't have people running free off the catch. So this is a major point of this offseason, is to get these things right. And while we have depth, who are our stars? Sweat. That's it. And you have all these draft picks. You know, we're supposed to be stars when you drafted them, and they're not developed yet. And they, in my opinion, lost the love of the game last year playing in this defense. It was like they were eviscerated and neutered out of their football love. And that's how serious this was. These guys quit last year. They didn't believe in the coaching. They didn't believe the system. There was no buy-in past the half-year point. And they're running the guy calling the plays back. So I don't know what happens. You brought in Terrell Lawson, thank goodness. But something's got to happen that signals to these players that major changes are happening in the style of the system and in how we employ our our assignments. That way a Max Melton doesn't, freak out. And I'm with Max. Max is now Sam's and my favorite player for speaking out, because he's expressing what we're feeling. And I think Kyle's on that bandwagon too. And it wouldn't surprise me if they cut him, a second-round pick, who, by the way, they traded out of. Here's another Monti scenario with Cooper DeJean on the board, with Kwame Lassiter on the board. You're trading out of that pick to take Max Melton, and you screw that up too. It just can't happen that way. So hopefully they embrace Max and put him in the right spots, and they find people who can coach these guys up.
I will say, though, as much as I do like Max, my San Diego State guy, Darren Hall, is still my favorite player on the defense.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Even though he's deep on the practice squad, Darren Hall will always be my favorite player on the Cardinals defense.
He had the golden opportunity of a lifetime last year, and he screwed it up so bad. I mean, I was rooting for him, too. In preseason, he's fantastic. But then down the stretch, with everybody else quitting, he had a chance to step up. And he was terrible. I mean, those goal line whiffs on in coverage, just total gifts. I was like watching a totally different player. And so he was part of the crew that, just sort of quit. Got stuck in cement in these soft zones. It just wasn't his game. And I agree with you. I've always loved this kid. So he's not the only one. I mean, the whole thing's got to change. But this week we wanted to hammer down on the defense. Get these, take a look at the roster. Like Sam said, we've got some depth here, which is good. But a lot of it is, short-term depth. We got to fill with legitimate stars. We need a star at 3. We need a star. And hopefully at 34, we're going to get a star.
Yep.
And at 65, we're going to get I think there's 3 stars out there we can add, and makes you look forward to the draft. So next week, we're going to go get after the offense. and go down it piece by piece. You know, we're going to really look towards the draft with what the priorities have to be. So until next time, may the red rain shower down on you into a red, red sea. In March Madness, baby, enjoy your weekends with the hoops and the brewskis and the good times and the hot weather. Over here, it's freezing. We're hoping for a spring. But anyway, best wishes to you on Red Rain.